Welcome along. We start there with Manchester United's pursuit of Ruben Amorim. Sporting believe that Amorim's move to Manchester United is a done deal, but they will only let him go on their terms. Our chief reporter, Kaveh Solokol, is with me. Kaveh, good to see you again. So look, despite the deal being very, very close, what's the realistic timeline of him being officially announced at Old Trafford?
Look, I think the way Sporting are looking at this is that he's got a notice period in his contract of 30 days. So they accept that he is going to leave. They're surprised and disappointed that he's decided to go during the season. They thought he was going to stay until the end of the season. But having said all that, they accept he's going to go to United, but they're saying, hey, hang on a second, we want to be respected as well. Our interests have to be considered in all this as well. We need to work out what is best for Sporting, not just what is best for Manchester United. And I think ideally Sporting's position is that they would like him to stay for his full notice period. So that is another 30 days. But I think maybe during negotiations, I'm being told maybe they would be willing to let him go during the international break. Now, if that was to happen, that would mean that he would have to stay to be in charge for their league game on Friday. I think they're playing Estrella Amadoro. Then they've got a Champions League game next Tuesday against Manchester City. So he would have to stay for that. Then a week on Sunday, they've got a league game away at Braga. So he would stay for that as well. And then there would be an international break, at which point they may be prepared to let him move to Manchester United. There's also the issue of his coaches. Three of his coaches Amorim wants to take with him to Manchester United. Carlos Fernandes, Adelio Candido and the goalkeeping coach Jorge Vital. Now, Sporting are saying we want compensation for them to go as well. Compensation of around €5 million. So it's a complicated situation. There's a bit of a tug of war going on between Sporting and Manchester United. Talks are underway at the moment, trying to sort all this out. The bottom line is that I think Ruben Amorim will become the Manchester United manager. Sporting definitely expect him to become the United manager. They believe it's a done deal, but they are saying we have to be respected. If he's going to leave, it's going to be on our terms. It's not just going to be about what suits him and what suits Manchester United. It also has to be what suits Sporting.
Yeah. What can those Manchester United players then expect from Amorim when and if he does arrive?
Well, look, Sporting expect him to be a success at Manchester United. They really think he's a special manager. They are obviously disappointed that he's going now. I think they were expecting him to leave in the summer. The kind of manager he is, I'm being told that United players should be expecting somebody who is very, very strict, somebody who doesn't take any nonsense whatsoever. They will need to be totally committed in training. He's got a very, very strict work ethic. And also, if anybody steps out of line or if anybody is not on board with his methods, then he will have no problems getting rid of them.
Are there any contract details emerging in terms of length, in terms of salary?
Well, we don't have anything concrete, but I think from the Portuguese side, what I'm being told is that Ruben Amorim at the moment earns around €2.5 million a year at Sporting. That is after tax. So before tax, the gross amount is around €5 million a year. Now, I think if he's going to move to Manchester United, he's going to look at probably trebling his wages. Obviously, that is very enticing. Everybody likes a pay rise, but I don't think he's motivated by money. That is not the reason why he would be moving to United.
Yeah, and what will he be expecting then? The big question that Manchester United fans will want answering in terms of backing in the future transfer windows, given how much backing Erik ten Hag was given at Old Trafford.
Look, I think he's realistic. He knows how much money has been spent, not just by Erik ten Hag, but by other United managers as well. I think I was reading somewhere today that since Sir Alex Ferguson left Old Trafford, United have spent something like £1.3 billion on players. There's also the new Premier League's PSR rules that have to be taken into account. He's not a checkbook manager. He knows that he's not going to have unlimited funds at United. He knows there are problems with the squad. There are issues he needs to sort out. It's not exactly the squad that he would like. but there are players in there who he knows, who he's worked with in the past, like Ugarte, like Bruno Fernandes as well. So it is a big challenge for him, but people I'm speaking to in Portugal sound pretty confident that he will get it right, and he is the right man to bring United back up to the level that they should be at.
We'll go with your paper first, Jason. The Telegraph for this one. All systems go for Amorim. Does it feel signed, sealed and almost secure?
Pretty much so, yeah. I think the big question now is when. And obviously a lot of people are wondering if he will be in Manchester in time to be in the dugout for the game against Chelsea on Sunday. I was speaking to somebody in Portugal before, and they said there is still an expectation at Sporting that it will actually take the league game on Friday evening, which slightly surprised me before any deal is finally agreed. But I think we'll find out very soon, in the next 24 hours, the sort of timetable as to when he will take over at Manchester United. Clearly, United have indicated now they're going to trigger the 10 million euro release clause in his contract. That's been obviously announced to the Portuguese financial markets, and that is now under negotiation in terms of his final exit. So we know it's happening. I don't think there'll be any hiccups or any last minute hitches. So I think then the attention will turn to when he's arriving, and then it will turn to who he's going to bring with him, what will be the makeup of backroom staff, and whether or not he'll be making significant changes there. But it looks like Ruben Amorim definitely is the next Manchester United head coach.
OK, well, yeah, we're very much nearing that conclusion, aren't we, Jason? Thank you for now. We'll get to your piece as well with the Ruud van Nistelrooy story and the comparison with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But let's focus on the back page of the Express, if we can now, Mark. And Ruben's the real deal. David McDonnell with Pep Guardiola's endorsement. Guardiola backs Amorim to succeed at United is the sub-heading there. Mark, what's your take on this? Because I have heard a couple of comments from yourself, and there's a little bit of conflicted assessment of Ruben Amorim, just because of maybe the formation, and you've also referenced the fact that he hasn't been picked up by other clubs yet.
Yeah, well, obviously he's a 3-4-3 guy, and that is kind of unusual in the Premier League. But we know that Antonio Conte had some success with three at the back at Chelsea, but it's not really a formation that a lot of teams use. But he's had success with it in Portugal. Listen, I think he's a great hire. I think he's, for the first time since Alex Ferguson left, United have got a coach at the right time on the way up. I think all of the other coaches they've hired have either been reactive or played people that they didn't really want. I mean, David Moyes was like sixth choice. Louis van Gaal was out of the club game for 4 years. Jose Mourinho was a reaction to Pep Guardiola at Man City. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a mistake. And Erik ten Hag was the cheap option, basically. He was cheaper than Mauricio Pochettino. So, but Ruben Amorim is a guy that a lot of clubs want. And, you know, I wouldn't say he was offered the Liverpool job last year. That wasn't the case, but he was very high on their list. He was considered by Barcelona, by Munich, West Ham, as we know. So he's a guy that is definitely on the up. And I think from a Man United perspective, if you're a fan looking at this and you don't quite know much about him, what he has, as well as a track record, is he's got a real personality. He's a great communicator. He speaks perfect English. He's got a presence. He's got a bit of a Jose Mourinho style charisma about him. He's not quite got the ferocious side of Mourinho or the nasty side of Mourinho, but he's a good communicator, and I think the United fans will enjoy the fact that he's got a bit of swagger about him. He's got a bit of confidence. He's quite a cool guy. I think you'll see him on the touchline. Did a bit like Pep. Dresses in a certain way, but he's different. He's got a character, and I think he'll be a big addition to the Premier League. And I think he's just what Man United need right now. And I think the formation situation with the three at the back, I think he can find a way around that. I think the issue is probably the midfield. He likes two midfielders that are very dynamic, box to box, can move around the pitch, and I'm not quite sure United have got that, but that isn't his fault. That's something he'll have to work at. They've got, Kobbie Mainoo and Manuel Ugarte are, very good young players, but whether they can do that box to box job that he likes his midfielders to do, we'll have to wait and see. But he knows Ugarte, he had him at Sporting before he went to PSG, so I think if you're a United fan, you should be quite optimistic about this. I think it's a really good appointment.
What's your read on it, Jason, in terms of optimism? Are you of the same opinion that perhaps he will be wedded to this formation 3-4-3, or will he have to adapt that to be successful with this Manchester United squad in this league?
It's a really good question. I think he is pretty much wedded to that system. That is the way he wants to play his football. And actually, when Manchester United looked at him some time ago, I think even looked at him last season, they were unsure whether they actually had the squad to play the system that he wanted. I think they feel that's changed a little bit over the summer. They've got probably a few more players that could adapt and could be sort of players that he could use. Obviously, as Mark mentions, Ugarte is one that played for Amorim at Sporting, so he knows him really, really well. I think Harry Maguire might be a big beneficiary of Amorim because he likes a big, tall centre half, and obviously Maguire could come back into the frame there. I think that the difficulty will be the sort of wider players, and also where somebody like Marcus Rashford fits in. I think Bruno Fernandes will benefit. So I think there are players there who obviously could be players for Amorim. I think it's an interesting hire. I agree with Mark. I think it's an exciting one. It probably is the most exciting hire that Manchester United have done since Sir Alex Ferguson in terms of a manager on the way up, a manager who is very well regarded, whose data is very, very good, who rates very highly in all the various scores that clubs now use, and also crucially has the personality that you need at a club like Manchester United. I think he's probably ready for this move. I think he's quite an awkward character. I think he's very demanding. I think he knows his own mind. I think even in the last couple of days, there's been a couple of nervous moments where there was a feeling that he might just change his mind at the last minute and he might just stay, he might just hang on a bit longer. But I think that's also quite interesting. We know, for example, he flew into London earlier this year to meet with West Ham United. So he's a man of his own mind. And I think he regretted doing that later because I think he feels he really could do better without being too critical of West Ham. And obviously he's now doing that with Manchester United. So I think it could be quite an exciting moment. Obviously, a lot of Manchester United fans will say, we've been here before, you've told us this sort of stuff before. But actually, I think with the way that Manchester United should be going, the way they want to go, I think this is a smart move.
OK, well, let's go to the iBack page, Mark. Amorim is set to be in place at Old Trafford by the weekend. And a lot's been made of the 14th place current in the Premier League. But how big could that game at Chelsea be? Because when you look at it, they're only 7 points off the top four if you're positively minded.
Well, exactly. That it's not an insurmountable challenge to get into the top four. I think it's a tall order, but getting back to what Jason was talking about earlier on about when will he arrive, and Ruben Amorim has no time to waste. Man United have no time to waste, so he needs to get there as soon as possible for his sake and for the club's sake. So, because there is a chance that United can, salvage this situation. They have got a good squad of players. They are underperforming. There's no question about that. There's definitely weaknesses in the squad, but that squad of players is definitely underperforming what their capabilities are. I think he's a coach that I think could be a bit warmer to the players than Ten Hag was. I think some players will get a bounce out of the fact that it's not Erik Ten Hag. I think they'll like Ruben Amorim's style. I think they'll like the fact that he's got charisma. I think he will find an extra performance level out of those players. And if he can get that, and if he can start with a win against Chelsea, if he is starting against Chelsea, that will give them momentum again going into the international break the following weekend. So there is a possibility that he can turn the situation around, but let's not get carried away. United have been really bad, and they've been bad for a long time. It will take a lot of time to turn the situation around, but a little bit of confidence, a little bit of change, it can always help. And we saw that under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a few years ago. They had an incredible bounce; they just couldn't sustain it. I think with Amorim, he'd look to have a bounce, but be able to sustain it and also implement his ideas. But I do think that there could be a bit of turbulence if he insists on going to three at the back straight away, because that is a system that, although players are used to playing, they're not that accustomed to playing at the highest level. But let's be honest, 4 at the back hasn't been working for Man United recently, has it? So maybe 3 at the back is a solution.
Maybe 10 at the back might help. Let's see. Let's get to the back page of the Sun, Jason. Sun Sport has the rubber stamped with RUB in red, as in Ruben Amorim. Just wonder, Jason, is there any concerns over the depth of his experience, given he's only been coaching since 2018? This isn't one of the coaching specialist, is it? This is a Portuguese international midfielder who is relatively new to this career.
Yes, I think that's a very valid point. I think what Manchester United would probably turn around and say to that was they looked at Ruben Amorim a couple of years ago, and if he'd have come to Old Trafford then, I think it would have been a mistake, not least because he needed more experience, but also they didn't have the infrastructure and the support around to sort of help a coach like him succeed. What's going to be interesting is his title's going to be head coach. Manchester United want to implement this system of a head coach working under a sporting director. That was something that Erik Ten Hag was very much against, and he fought very hard to maintain the title manager in the summer and won that battle. But Manchester United have made it very, very clear that this is going to be a head coach appointment. So therefore, somebody's going to be out there on the grass, coaching the players, and other responsibilities were taken away from him. And he's very much going to be a sort of a manager who's going to be working on the training pitches, and other duties will be taken elsewhere. So from that point of view, they will argue that they are putting the right sort of structure in around him, with obviously Dan Ashworth, with Jason Wilcox, and obviously Omar Barada coming in the summer as CEO. They'll say we've got a much more stronger department around around the new head coach that they're going to bring in, that obviously one of Erik ten Hag's complaints when he first arrived at Manchester United, he felt very much on his own. He didn't think he had the right sort of level of support around him, and he used that as an excuse also, to be fair. That excuse will be taken away from somebody like Amorim. But you're absolutely right. There is clearly a risk. He's never coached at a league like the Premier League before. He's had huge success in Portugal, but it is a minor league relatively in European terms. But we know that Portuguese managers have come to England and have done very, very well, not least, of course, Jose Mourinho, Marco Silva, and so on. So there is a good pedigree there. And I think Manchester United will have done a lot of due diligence and homework on this and believe this will be the right sort of appointment for them.
Sporting believe Ruben Amorim's move to Manchester United is a done deal, but are standing firm on his 30-day notice period. Sporting aren't going to let Amorim leave without them being respected and without their interests being taken into consideration. There's a 10 million release clause. United said they'll pay that. But he also has a 30-day notice period in his contract. Sporting would want ideally for him to stay for those 30 days. And also, he wants to take 3 of the coaches from Sporting to Manchester with him. For that, Sporting need to be paid compensation. And the compensation they are looking for is 5 million, which is around 4 million. So from Sporting's point of view, Amorim is going, but they are saying, hey, respect us too. We're a big, big club in Europe. We're a big, big club in Portugal. We're not going to just turn around and let Manchester United come into town, take our manager, put him on a private plane and take him to Old Trafford. He has a contract. Yes, the release clause has been triggered. But there's still this issue of the 30-day notice period. They may be prepared to let him go during the international break that's going to happen next month. Now, if that were the case, that would mean that Amorim would be in charge of Sporting for their Friday night game against Estrela. That would also mean that Amorim would be in charge of the Champions League game against Manchester City next week. And also the game against Braga a week on Sunday. Then you have the international break. So potentially that would be the moment for him to make his move. Now obviously United want him straight away. But Sporting are saying, look at his contract, he has this 30-day notice period. Manchester United have confirmed that Ruud van Nistelrooy will take up pre-match media duties ahead of Sunday's visit of Chelsea amidst ongoing attempts to appoint Ruben Amorim as the club's new manager. The Dutchman, who is overseeing United's Carabao Cup clash against Leicester on Wednesday following the sacking of Erik ten Hag, will face journalists on Thursday ahead of the visit of Enzo Maresca's Chelsea. United had hoped to have Amorim in place for the visit of the Blues, but appointing the Portuguese is proving difficult due to a notice period in his contract, with Van Nistelrooy primed to oversee as many games as needed in the absence of the incoming boss. Ten Hag was shown the door on Monday morning after a series of disappointing performances this season, with United languishing 14th in Premier League and winless in Europa League action after 3 games. The Dutchman was in charge at Old Trafford for 2.5 years, winning the Carabao Cup in 2023 and the FA Cup last season. Amorim is on the verge of sealing a deal as the new gaffer at United, with Sporting demanding a 10 million compensation package, a sum regarded as reasonable by the Old Trafford top brass as they seek to move for the highly rated Portuguese coach. Following Sporting's 3-1 victory over CD Nacional in the Taça da Liga, Amorim faced the press on Tuesday evening and shared in this moment, "I have nothing to say and everything that I say will cause more noise. There's nothing concrete to say right now, but when I have to speak about the subject, I will. When I have something concrete to say and not just something that will fuel speculation, I will." He continued, "We still don't know the finer details, so we will see. Everything I say now will only fuel speculation, so when I have something to say, I will say. I've always been clear about my decisions and the decision is mine as the statement stated. When I am sure of everything, everything will be easier because to say something now is not the best action to take."